Welcome back. It is good to see you. Shout out to the YouTube and Spotify audience. Hi. Today I want to bond over some of my trauma, but be productive about it. When I was, 11 or 12, I was going to this event where I was going to be doing a speech. And in the car ride there, I did something that upset one of my parents, and that parent reacted to whatever I did. I don't remember, conveniently, by calling me stupid. And in that moment, that was like a pivotal thing for me. I don't want to get into everything of, parenting styles and different things like that. That's not the point of the story. I think that in that moment, I had someone who I looked up to, someone who I trusted, and they were changing my perception of who I was. They called me stupid, and to them it was just an offhanded thing and just a reaction to whatever was going on. But to me, I took it as my truth in that moment. And it took a lot of time to uproot that for myself. That passing comment or reaction to me became something that I adopted in my everyday life. So anytime that I would make a mistake and I was by myself, I would just be like, "You're so stupid. You're so stupid." And I would just speak that over myself all the time until it became my truth, to where I really thought I was stupid. Anytime that I heard the word stupid, it was such a charged word for me. And in calling myself stupid, that led to more negative talk, to where I was at the point where I was saying, what's the point of even existing, and all these different things. And it really led me down this negative path. And when I'd be in school and my friends are joking around, they'd be like, "Oh, that's so stupid. Oh, you're so stupid for saying that." They don't mean it in the way that I'm receiving it, but because I have this lens from this one time, I was receiving it that way, and I would not react in a good way at all. It became such a fight or flight word for me. And so when other people were reinforcing that unknowingly, it was just really cementing that for myself. So much so that I think it was my first day of my junior year, and I'm not super good at math. I had a hard time getting through algebra, probably because I believed I was stupid. Because anytime that I wouldn't know something right off the bat, I would just beat myself up and say, "You're stupid. Why don't you understand this?" And then I wouldn't learn anything because I was too afraid to ask questions, because I thought someone would think I was stupid. And we all do these things, but when we say them out loud, they seem really silly. Anyway, my first day of class, my teacher pulls me up to the front in front of all of my classmates, and she highlights me and says, "This guy barely passed algebra. He's going to 100% fail geometry, so there's no point for him to even try this year." And in that moment, there's another authority figure, I don't know that I necessarily looked up to her, telling me that I'm stupid and that I can't do something. And so I gave up, and I did exactly what she said. I failed her class because she had already given up on me before I even had an attempt. But this became a pattern for me where I had this belief that I was stupid, and so I couldn't learn anything, I couldn't grow, I couldn't be any more than where I was. And I carried this into adulthood. And the negative talk towards myself just became worse and worse and worse. And it even started to show up in my humor. It was just all self-deprecation when it came to my humor, because I figured if I made the joke first, no one else could. And living that way sucked. It wasn't fun. You always feel like you're having to be ahead of what everyone is thinking or perceiving about you so that you can't be hurt by it. And that was the way that I lived my life for such a long time, because I was afraid of being seen as stupid, or I was afraid of being hurt by other people's words. And in that, I allowed other people's perception or words, despite intent, mold the character in which I saw myself. All of these stories and scenarios have a happy ending. So let me tell you about that. One day I was listening to a podcast. I don't recall what the podcast topic was, but I heard this sentence that changed absolutely everything for me. It's 4 words. Your words create worlds. And those 4 words, so simple but so powerful, sparked the journey for me to come out of this place of negative self-talk. I realized that what I'm speaking over myself is what's happening. We all know that person or are that person who says, I never want to be like my dad because my dad was this, that, and the other. And typically what ends up happening is we become, or they become, exactly like the person that they despise and hold the characteristics that they despise the most. Because what we focus on, we make room for. If my focus is on negativity, it's only going to give me negativity back. If my focus is on positivity, positivity is going to come back to me. My words are creating worlds. What I'm focused on is going to bring back whatever it is that I'm focused on. It's not to say that this principle is like an absolute. There's outliers to this. If you're focused on positive things, like it doesn't mean that bad things don't happen, but the principle of the matter being focusing on positivity, focusing on your goals, focusing on bettering yourself rather than just tearing yourself down or what you can't possibly attain. The principle is focusing on what it is that you want to see happen. So like I said, after hearing this, I started this life-changing process that absolutely was not easy because I had conditioned myself for so long to speak negatively towards myself and to joke negatively towards myself. As I was going through that process, a side note, I wish that I would have been so much kinder and more patient with myself as I was completely changing what the default was to that point. So to you watching, if you decide that, you don't want to speak negatively toward yourself anymore, be kind to yourself, be patient with yourself, do a favor for both of us, please. But as time went on and I was entered into this process, I started to notice that I was no longer speaking negatively about myself 24/7. I was actually speaking highly of myself and my capabilities, and I was able to get in touch with myself and acknowledge the truth of who I was. I wasn't making jokes about what a terrible human being I was. I was focused on the truth in the situation. I was focused on my character, not what someone had labeled me or spoken over me. I was no longer allowing everybody else to tell me who I was. Because I got in touch with myself, I was able to tell other people who I am with my actions. And as I got in touch with myself more, I began to love myself. Because if I were to speak to somebody in that way that I was speaking over myself, that person would not want to be around me. So why would I do that to myself? That was the place that I had to get to. I had to take off this terrible mindset that, well, no one's around, so, stuff happens. If you have to pretend that people are around and you have an audience in order to treat yourself well to get you to a point to where it's just normal, then do that. Because it's so important to treat yourself well. You can't be this one person in front of everybody else, but then behind the scenes, you're just tearing yourself apart. It's not a healthy way to live, and it's not a sustainable way to live. And I've done it, and that's why I'm speaking from that place, because it sucks, and I don't want anyone to live that way. When facing situations that would normally send me down a negative path, I started to take time out and breathe. I had to remove myself from the situation at first in order to clear my mind and reapproach said situation that made me feel whatever way. I think that it's gnarly that we use timeouts as a punishment as we're growing up. It's honestly probably why we have such a hard time resting as human beings, because growing up, a timeout or rest is seen as holding us back from what we want to be doing and just getting stuff done. But sometimes the timeout is needed. Sometimes the rest is needed. I can't just try to do one specific task for hours and hours and hours and hours on end and expect to have it figured out. Sometimes when you just go for a walk and then come back, you can figure it out immediately because you've cleared your mind and you're reassessing the situation. So when things would frustrate me, taking that breath, taking that time, coming back to it. You're not on anybody's timeline to have this figured out. It's okay to take time and to, from a place of rest, go after these different things. But I feel like that whole thing that I just said is kind of a rabbit hole that I'm going to dodge so that I stay on topic. So maybe another video we'll talk about, rest and all that junk. I knew that the process that I had entered into was working when someone made a joke and called me stupid. And it didn't have this gut punch effect like it used to have. I think that when you're navigating how far you've come in a process. If there's emotions tied to whatever it is, and those emotions are less, then you're making progress. But if those emotions are still as high as they were whenever the initial thing happened, then I think that there's still a little bit more work to do. But I was noticing that I wasn't getting really upset and wasn't taking it personally, and I wasn't making jokes about the bad person that I was and how dumb I was and all these different things. The defense mechanism was no longer needed because I was defining who I was at that point. My process was not always clean, but I had to come to this place of realization that if I don't invest in my self-perception, literally no one else will, because it's my self-perception. I'm not going to be on the back burner anymore and bending over backwards to make everyone feel good, but then feeling miserable all the time. Your self-perception is huge because out of that flows all your other relationships. Like in every video ever, I brought people into that process. I had to be vulnerable and I had to be honest and really explicit with what was going on. Hey, this stories that I told you guys just now, these all happened, and this is how I've been leading my life since then. I no longer want to lead my life that way. I need help. I needed to make sure I was communicating the scope of what was happening in order for my friends who I love and trust to help me best. Withholding details of your process to people that you've invited into it is only harmful to you, and you're almost wasting the other person's time because they're trying to help you, but you're not giving them all the information, so they're not able to help you. It's important just to be real. Be real with yourself. Be real with the people that you trust. They're not going to run away. They're there for you. They care about you. And it's important to be seen and to allow yourself to be seen in those moments. If you're finding yourself having a really hard time with someone that you've started a process with and sharing and being honest, maybe reevaluate who you're sharing with. If you can just find one person, 2 people to bring into the process, that's huge. You don't have to go to every single friend and bring them in, but those 2 people that you can bring in all the way and just all the dirty laundry's out there so that you can be seen, heard, understood, do that. And there's other friends where you share a bit of what's going on and they can support you in a different way. That's what creating the ecosystem is. That's what understanding what role this person has in my life. That's why that's so important, and I'm going to emphasize it forever and ever and ever. We need people. You're going to hear it in every video. We need people. Give people everything that's on the table. Don't be holding back information. Don't be holding back things. The reason why I'm being so aggressive with this point is because that's what I did. And it only harmed me. It didn't help me. It made my process so much harder than it needed to be because I was afraid of being rejected. And I know that that's how we feel. We don't want to be rejected by our friends. We don't want to be seen differently. But if we can step past that feeling and into vulnerability and honesty, that's when we can get some real work. And the people that led me through that process are still so close to me. They know me better than anyone else because I let them know me better than anyone else. They didn't see me differently. They didn't cast me aside. You have good friends in your life. Utilize them. I promise you do. When I was only half sharing what was going on in my life, I was expecting the other person to solve my problems. And it's like giving them a car with no gas and no keys. It does not work. Be honest. So what does allowing people into that process specifically look like? You can start that conversation like this. Can I be vulnerable with you for a moment? I think that I have a negative thought pattern towards myself, and I no longer want to feel this way. And I think I know how to get out of it, but I need a support system. Would you be able to check in on me? And would you be able to hold me accountable when we're together? If you hear me talking negatively about myself in front of our friends or just between us, can you call me out? And with this, I'm going to commit to that person that I'm asking to be honest with them, even if that question that they ask, the answer that I'm going to give them, I know is not what they want to hear. I haven't made progress in this. That's okay. But be honest in that. Don't pretend like you've come so far, because again, you're only hurting yourself. And that's what I was doing. I was telling everyone, oh yeah, I haven't spoken poorly about myself in so long, when I was just calling myself a stupid idiot at home. And I was just super upset. And then I was more mad because I lied to my friends who I brought in. It's a cycle. It's unfortunate, but it's a cycle that we see, and it plagues a lot more people than we realize. Another, maybe not for you, definitely for me, uncomfortable question in that time, sharing with your friend who you trust, is asking them what are the qualities that they see in you. And it feels like you're fishing for a compliment, because you are. Because oftentimes we have such a skewed perception of ourselves. And when other people begin to share their perception of us, we realize there's so much good there. And so with that information, I ask myself, okay, this person sees me this way. I see me as this way. What do I need to do to close the gap between those things? What do I need to do to begin to perceive myself in a positive way rather than just a negative way all the time? Having that information is going to help you to ask yourself good questions. And do that. Ask yourself good questions. Don't just put this process on someone else. This is you. You are the most important relationship that you have. You've got to take care of you. Knowing yourself, extremely important. I have emphasized that every video again. Realize this. Your actions are not your identity. So when I do something that's out of character, that doesn't necessarily make me a terrible human being who is worthless. I have to ask myself, why did I do that thing? What brought me to that point? What separated me from my character in that moment? But if I do not know me and I don't have people that are sharing awesome things about me, then how would I even know and be able to differentiate between my actions and my character? You're not your actions. Oftentimes, we do things that are out of character as a fight or flight response. We're doing it out of fear. And that is why it is so vital to ask yourself the important questions. Why did I do that? Why did I diss this person who's only been nice to me? Oh, I'm feeling jealous about the attention that they're getting, and so I'm going to diss them to knock them down a peg. But that's not who I am. That was just a fear that I allowed to come in between the relationship. Being in touch with me helps me to recognize that. Then I can go to that person, apologize. Number one, please apologize. And then moving forward, can realize there's a different course of action in that scenario. And when asking yourself questions, you do not have to have answers. Don't pressure yourself to have answers. Asking the question and beginning that process is half the battle. It's a snowball effect. Those things are going to fall into place. I'm asking myself the hard questions. I'm actually processing this. I'm bringing people in. You're going to make progress, but don't be so hard on yourself, and don't put yourself on someone else's timeline. Don't put yourself on a timeline. We all are different people. Do not compare yourself to someone else's timeline or someone else being in a different place than you with emotional intelligence. None of that matters. This is you, your life, the most important relationship that you have. How are you going to handle it? Oh, I made a mistake. Okay. I see my mistake. I recognize. I own up to it. And now I'm going to move forward and I'm going to choose a different path. I think it's very easy when resetting our default that when we make a mistake, that we believe that that's just, oh, I'm back to my prior default. You're not. You're changing, and that's why you're feeling this like ick from doing that, because before there was probably no remorse. That was just really natural. So don't fall into that slippery slope of thinking, oh, I haven't changed at all, so what's the point? Let me just go back to how it was. Just keep going. Having people in that process to encourage you is going to be helpful when those times come when you're like, oh, I kind of missed the mark here. That person's like, oh, it's okay. Next time, how are you going to react? Next time, because next time. There's always next time. We're always growing as people. We're always becoming better. The next time is our best time. What does self-talk look like for me now? Well, humbly, I would say I'm a pretty smart guy. Smarter than the average Joe. No disrespect to Joe who may be watching. I am so much more patient with myself. I'm still in that process. I wish at times that I was more patient with myself because I have an expectation to know something immediately as soon as I pick it up, which isn't fair. That's my process. And I'm, like I said, I'm not on anyone's timeline, but I'm making progress in my process. There's been so much growth. I think, too, an additional 3 side notes, 1 video. Acknowledge the progress that you have made. 2, write it down. Have a journal, have something in your notes section of your phone, have something that's just this acknowledgement of your accomplishment in your process, any of the processes that we've talked about. Because whenever you're feeling down, you can look back and be like, whoa, I've grown so much. Because I think if we try to keep it all in our mind, we forget stuff. And so it's why it's important, I think, to write stuff down in your notes, whatever, wherever. That way you can chronicle your exciting journey of becoming the best you possible. In the whole process of correcting my negative self-talk, I had to overcorrect. And it's embarrassing, but this is the God honest truth. I would look in front of the mirror before I left for work or whatever each day, and I would say 2 or 3 nice things about myself. And it was so uncomfortable, but it became normal. And, I know there's a lot of thoughts when it comes to affirmation, but for me, in my process, which that's what this video is, it's my process and hopefully adding tools to your tool belt, affirmation was huge. Having affirmation spoken over myself and having other people speak affirmation over me. It was really helpful because I'm rewiring the way that I've conducted myself to this point. Negativity was natural. Positivity was foreign. And so I had to sit there and physically look at myself and be like, you're smart. You're good. You're a good friend. You got this. Go kill the day. And it sounds silly. It sounds dumb. But I was the most important relationship to me. And I couldn't live the way that I was living anymore. And I had people who I told I was doing that, and they held me accountable because I let them into the entire process. Hey, did you do your affirmations today? No, I didn't. Yes, I did. That whatever it is that you decide is going to be the best possible course of action for you, having those people in the process, telling them what's going on, having them hold you accountable, huge, huge. I don't think I would have continued to do that had I not felt as if I had someone that I had to answer to. Because unfortunately, at that point in my life, answering to me wasn't enough because I didn't love myself enough. But having other people to answer to can help you get to that place to where now when I do things for me, I'm not doing it because I'm being held accountable. I'm doing it because I love me. Because this is the journey that I've gone on, which has been a long process. And I'm still learning and figuring things out as I go. I have by no means arrived at total, full human potential, but I'm willing to continue to go. And I've taken what I have and I've used it as that snowball effect in order to keep going and keep going and keep going. Because there's more. We're complex people. There's so much to us. We're not going to figure it out in a day. The most difficult thing that I had to do in this process, more so than letting people know what a dirtbag I was being to myself, or acknowledging that I was being a dirtbag to myself, was I had to forgive myself. And that was so hard. I had to forgive myself for all the times that I just spoke negatively over myself. And I even had to forgive the people who spoke negatively over me. I didn't directly go to them, but I just had to let go of that. I forgive so-and-so for saying this. I forgive me for saying this, because I wanted to grasp onto something different, aka positivity, but I was holding on to all this negativity still. So my hands were full. So if my hands are full, I can't reach for anything else. I can just stay where I am and hold on to this and sink. I think it is vital to forgive yourself, whether it be just about this topic or whatever it is. I know that we all have that thing that we hold over our head, and it's not fair to do that to yourself anymore. When was the last time that you just sat down and forgave yourself? I think so much progress can be made in those moments of reflection and forgiveness. It's huge. I would not be able to have gotten as far as I have in my process had I not let go of the irritation I had towards myself. I don't want to put it on you, but I think it's really important. You should potentially take some time this week. Just sit down and forgive yourself for whatever it is. Do it for you. Don't do it for anyone else. No one's going to be there watching. But you're just going to feel so much better. Because it's the elephant in the room that everyone pretends like isn't there. So coming down from my soapbox of forgiving yourself, be mindful of what you're speaking over yourself. Your words are creating worlds. What you are focused on, you're making room for. Are you creating with your words, or are you tearing down? And with everything that I've said, all of this can be applicable to your other relationships, but everything has to start with you. I feel like, for me, I can't be in a place to let go of some wrong that someone's done to me until I've done that for myself. I can't speak kindly and just build other people up all the time and it be genuine if I'm not doing that for myself. I'm filling myself up so that I can give out to other people. And I think that if more people had this mindset of loving themselves to love other people, world would run a lot more smooth. But I digress. Healthy self-talk is vital to reaching fullness of life. I don't want to just live. I want to have fullness of life. If you made it to the end of this video, I appreciate you so much. In fact, I'm going to give you 8 gold stars this time. I'm told to tell you to like and subscribe and to comment. I would like to hear from you. What are some things that you've done on your journey of changing your self-talk? How have you come out of agreement with something that someone else has spoken over you? What's worked? What hasn't? Let me know. And until next time,